My name is Todd Hall, and I'm director of the University of Oxford's China Center and professor here at the University of Oxford International Relations. It's my pleasure today to present to you another episode of One Big Thing in China Research. Today, our guest is Professor Andrea Ghiselli, who is an assistant professor in the School of International Relations and Public Affairs at Fudan University and a research fellow at the University of Torino's To China Hub. Professor Ghiselli has done amazing work looking at how China has engaged, thought about, considered, adjusted its policies vis-a-vis its protection of its overseas interests. And so it's very much my pleasure to have you here today,
Thank you,
Professor
Todd.
Ghiselli. And so do tell us, what is your one big thing you'd like to share with us today?
So the big thing that I would like our listeners to know from today discussion is that China is not a monolith. I think that's a very important thing. And although we are pushed by, as Bob Jervis says, by international tension, by tensions in international relations, to look at the others, at the rivals as monolith, as machines that are capable of carrying out complex and cunning plans. Um, that's not the truth. Although we see that approach becoming more and more uh, dominant in today's China's literature, Chinese foreign policy literature.
So your work looks at protection of protection of overseas interests. And so what is it then you're saying that this is this policy of expanding Chinese military protection capabilities, expanding Chinese presence overseas, that you're saying this is something that's not a centrally organized policy?
Correct. In the sense, of course, over time there is a growingly, of course, organization and centralization of the policy making and the policy itself. But if we look at, for example, uh, if we ask a simple question, how is it possible that, for example, Chinese companies and Chinese workers are so numerous in highly unstable countries? It's clearly, it's difficult to find a strategic goal in that. Even if we look at how Chinese policymakers and Chinese policymaking institutions adapted to became aware of the necessity to protect those companies, and then they started to adapt. We see that it was it was not necessarily a very linear or straightforward process. Different institutions had different interests, different necessities, and so on. So we always see, especially now, there's a lot of people say this all about China's expanding its influence in these parts of the world, like Middle East and Africa and so on. But actually, if you look at these issues from the Chinese side, we try at least to look at these issues from the Chinese side, we see there are many more challenges, doubts, and concerns than we usually think about.
So how, if one doesn't view the Chinese party state as a monolith, how should one view it? And where should one look? How should one look at it?
How to do it? I believe we should start to look at the different institutions that are involved and be aware that we are talking about enormous institutions, vastly numerous and vast institutions that again they are involved in the policy making process in different stages, and again they even their connections to the top leadership is different. Uh, I think what we should try to do is, of course, China is unique in many ways, but also try not to make it more unique than what it is. Uh, I think we should really try to leverage all all our skills, linguistic skills, theoretical skills, to try to open the red box, not a black box. It's a red box, right? So try to find the right information, try to find the right theoretical approaches that help us to at least make informed guess about what happens inside. I think that's what we should do.
So it's often said that studying China though is very hard because there is such opacity, and the Chinese, the PRC, the People's Republic of China, also in many ways tries to protect an image of a unified, almost
Right.
monolithic policy making process. But so how does one go about that? What are the ways then to do what you're suggesting?
So this recently I was reading this very good book chapter written by James Rosenau, and he makes the case about how back then scholars should have approached the study of Soviet foreign policy making. And of course, but even back then, the problem of information was very significant. And as I was reading the chapter, I was thinking, well, today there is much, much more available about China. The government published data. We can debate forever about if their reliability, but data are there. Newspapers are there. There is CNKI, which with the academic publications. There are white papers and so far and so on. I mean, there is a vast amount of information, actually. The problem is not that there is too few sometimes, but there is way too much. And the challenge is to find the right information. So I guess the first part is to abandon a bit the skepticism about the information that it's out there, not always take everything like as propaganda or just something for communication with the external world, but try to take serious a bit more that information and start from there. I believe we can find the right way to kind of, again, make informed guess. We will never know exactly how the policy was made, probably, but at least we can try.
Do you have any specific tips for people who would do this type of work? Where to look, or what things to look for? Because of course you're looking for very different things, I imagine, when you're engaging Chinese foreign policy documents.
Yes and no. At the same time, yes and no. For example, but like at least for my research, I found out that a lot of data was interested in. I was interested in. Such as the number of workers abroad. It's out there in the yearbooks that are published every year. You don't have to guess or do strange research. It's literally in the library, and most of them also published online in I believe in the website of the Statistic Bureau of the PRC. There is CNKI, of course. One has to be careful, and look sources from CNKI, looking at where the journal is published, who is the author, what's his affiliation, his or her affiliation. So we need to be a bit sensitive about what institutions we are looking at. But again, I think I would not say that it's really magic or tea leaf reading. A lot of times, it's really about common sense. There are a lot of sources, and it's all about understanding where the source come from, what institution come from, and that's it.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this conversation today. And so if people want to know more about your work, where should they look?
Well, on my book just been published by Oxford University Press, so of course it's available on OUP's website, both UK and US, and should be available on Amazon and all other online bookstores.
And that book is Protecting China's Interests Overseas, Securitization and Foreign Policy. And that's Oxford University Press, 2021.
Yes, correct.
Very good. Congratulations. And
Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for hosting me today.
Thank you. And if you'd like to know more about this book or other events or other podcasts that we have, do please visit the University of Oxford's China Center website. Thank you for watching, and we hope that you will join us again.